You know, Journey has a unique sound and a legacy that's still going today. We're going to talk about that sound coming right up. Hello, everybody. Gary Stuckey here. Welcome back to another episode where we're talking about Steve Perry and Journey and all that good stuff. And today we're talking about the members of Journey and how they make up that sound. In the past you had Greg Riley with the Hammond B3 organ and the keyboards and his singing with the Santana sound. You know, he had that old sound. And then Steve Perry came along with a Sam Cooke voice. It was phenomenal. And then the transition with Jonathan Cain's keyboards flowing and his songwriting. Neal Schon's guitar soaring, playing from his heart. Steve Smith banging those drums really hard and playing like crazy. Ross Valory with his groove and the sound, the deep bass sound and the grooves that we know and love in Journey all make up this mixture of sound. And even though some members had left, they try to keep that sound intact, you know. And even when Journey went to do other things like Bad English, and you had that similar sound, those are great albums. Go check those out if you've never heard the two Bad English albums. Hardline, which Dean Castronovo was in those bands, and then there was another band, Storm. You know, they had Greg Riley and Steve Smith and Ross Valory. Speaking of Dean Castronovo, you know, he and Johnny Gioeli were in Hardline. They got a new album out. Totally awesome. You like Journey, you're gonna like this album. Very good album. A lot of good songs on there. But that whole legacy, that sound, is a sound that you can't capture anywhere. But the guys that make up that sound, and when Steve Perry left, you know, you gotta hand it to Steve Algeri for, you know, keeping it going. Even though, you know, whatever happened with Steve when he left, some people were saying, you know, they're blaming the guys in Journey. Then, you know, others, people don't know, you know, everything that went down. You do know that Steve left the band. He hurt his hip, and you know, there were some different sides of the story. I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm going to talk about the fact that Steve did leave, and you know, you can't force somebody to stay. You can't force somebody to come back to the band. That's my hope that maybe one day he will. I believe he will. But Steve Algeri kept that sound going and did a great job. Some great albums. Even Dean Castronovo came in and has that Steve Perry kind of sound. Sounds great. Even on the Journey Through Time with Neal Schon, covering some old Steve Perry tunes. Man, he sounds phenomenal. You need to check that out if you haven't already. Journey Through Time. Check it out on YouTube. Dean Castronovo, he nails it. And he kept that sound going too. And then of course Arnel, you know, they went out and found a guy that could sound like Steve. And it's an honor to Steve, not trying to take away. Everybody knows there's no other Steve. But if you can't have Steve and you want to keep that legacy going, you gotta appreciate those guys and that sound. And Steve is coming out with a new album. You know, a lot of people don't like Journey without Steve. Hey, I would rather have Steve. Honestly, when I heard that Steve wasn't in the band and Steve Algeri took his place, kind of upset. But, you know, it's like, I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, I think there was a strike in the NFL. And some of your favorite teams, I was watching the Saints. I remember I'm a big Saints fan. And you had to have these, they called them scab players, because the guys, the regular guys were on strike. So you had to have these backup guys come in. You know, you either watch those guys or you didn't watch football at all. So I'm looking at these guys. I wouldn't say they're like scab players, but you know they're filling in and keeping it going. And I think they're doing a pretty good job. Of course, not Steve Perry, and Steve Perry may come back. I hope he does. I think he will. I think there's going to be some kind of reunion in the works one day soon. I'm hoping. Hey Neil, you hear me? That coffee is brewing. Uh, but Journey's going to go on tour this weekend. Go check that out. They do a great job. And Steve Perry, of course, new album. I'm thinking a new single is about to be released. I'm thinking soon, people. Might be the next thing you hear when you turn on the radio. Might be tomorrow. Who's to say? But keeping the Journey alive and well, even without Steve Perry, uh, you know, it's a blessing to have those guys still playing. And I appreciate those guys still going after all these years. If you can't have Steve Perry, you can have the music and the legacy and those hits, you know. And who's to say Journey in the future? You never know. But hey, this is Gary Stuckey. Don't you stop believing in Steve Perry and Journey. Don't stop believing at all. God bless you. I'll see you next time.